let's bring in our friend Louis Riddick here from ESPN to kick off hour number 3. Louis, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Doing great, man. How are you?
We spoke to Ahmed Hassanin in hour number 2. When I say he's one of the most delightful prospects I have ever spoken to in my 20-plus years, it's an understatement. Wow. Is his story from Egypt to Boise to the Combine and now to the NFL, I loved it. And it's exactly what every team is kind of looking for, somebody with a motor and a story like him. Louis?
Yep. No question. You know, we got a chance to cover them in the Fiesta Bowl this past year against Penn State. And look, that's what Boise does, man. Boise finds high character individuals, really has a great program in place in terms of player development, both on and off the field. That's how guys like Hassanin is able to ascend to become a leader, become a captain, become one of the more trusted players in that program. The fact that they pour into guys like that is why players don't leave that program. You know, Boise has never had an issue with guys like leaving for the riches of the NIL world. I mean, you would have thought, right, that Aston Genty would have been long gone. A guy like, you know, like he would have been long gone, like the safety Benefield would have been long gone. But these guys don't leave. And it's cool to see guys who have that kind of conviction and that kind of commitment. And that's exactly what you're looking for in the NFL. Guys who have conviction, who have commitment to the game, commitment to personal growth, because that what makes you sleep at night when you're paying them a lot of money.
What is your general sense of this draft at the top right now? Now that we're through the first big splashes of the new league year, Louis, and we're a month and a half away, and rubber's now going to start meeting the road. What's your general sense of the top of this draft right now?
Yeah, man, it's interesting. Like, you know, what does Tennessee really do? Does Tennessee really do they see Cam Ward the same way that I personally see Cam Ward? Do they see him as a franchise setter, a tone setter, a pillar player? Or do they say, hey, you know what? We're going to trade out of here and let someone else come up and pick and see if we can continue to build out the rest of our roster and fall into that whole line of thinking of where we'll insert the quarterback at some later date as if those guys grow on trees. And if that's the case, then who would they try and move up? Who would they allow to move up into that spot to get a guy like Cam Ward? Because I do believe that he will go first overall, and I believe he's worthy of going first overall. Or do they sit there and they take a guy like Abdul Carter and they say, hey, look, we're comfortable with his, you know, with the situation regarding the stress reaction that he has in his foot. And then what happens at number 2? At one point in time, you would have thought Cleveland was going to go ahead and draft a quarterback, regardless of, you know, all the other things that they were rumored to be maybe thinking in the free agency market. But now, with the trading for Kenny Pickett, Russ going in there for a free agent visit, does that cool them off as far as the quarterback situation is concerned? And does someone want to move into that spot to draft a quarterback number 2 or get someone else at number 2? Or does Cleveland sit there and draft someone? Do they draft, you know, Travis Hunter? I think there's a lot of things, man, that are still up in the air, to be honest with you, Rich, as far as how people view these players, starting with the quarterbacks, and then how do they view Travis? How do they view Abdul? And maybe most importantly, I think when you're talking about the quarterback situation and how that could shake things up, how do people view Shedeur Sanders?
How do you view him?
I view him as a franchise player. I view him as a franchise quarterback it would be great, again, to follow the blueprint of draft him, have the quarterback room set up to where he can kind of get his bearings, get settled in year 1, and then take off in year 2. He has what you want, okay? He has the mental horsepower. He has plenty of arm strength. He has plenty of mobility. He has toughness galore. Listen, there are people now who throw out those arguments of, well, you know what? Look at what his record was at Colorado. He wasn't able to put that entire team on his back. He wasn't able to lift them to the kind of heights that maybe his bravado says that he did. The kid had no offensive line his first year. I did multiple games. He was getting his head beat in. They had no running game. He is deadly accurate, extremely smart. He can push the ball down the field, and he's uniquely equipped to be able to deal with all the other responsibilities that a franchise quarterback is going to have to deal with. That's a given. Super mature. He's one of those guys that has been raised the right way by his father. there's nothing you can say that's going to affect him. So yeah, I think he's a franchise quarterback. That's the long and short of it. But you know what? If he gets past Vegas at 6, if he gets past the Jets at 7, who knows what happens after that? Who knows? So I think the top half, the top 10 picks in the draft are going to be very, very interesting because there's a lot still up in the air.
And then, of course, there's the current state of affairs in Giants land, in Steelers land, waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision and how that splashes into the draft, Louis Riddick. My first question for you is, where do you think Rodgers best fits?
If you let the chatter tell it, he don't fit anywhere, right? He's a cancer. He's done. He's never going to regain the form that he had, which he probably doesn't, but that's okay. He doesn't have to. That he's a malcontent and he's going to tear the entire organization apart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, we all know that he comes with some, let's just say, personality characteristics that you feel as though would be, for lack of a better word, challenging to integrate into your football team. So I think the best fit for him is a place where they don't bend to you. You're going to fit into what they do. And that would require a place that has a very strong ownership group, strong general manager, strong head coach, and strong locker room, and a tradition of being able to assimilate people who are very strong like Aaron Rodgers into their culture and have them buy in because they see the greater good. They see the benefit of the greater good. That's Pittsburgh. That's Pittsburgh to me. All right. And it's not, I think the benefits of him going to a place like that far outweigh the negatives as far as him, maybe tearing that place down and or being a negative drag on what they're trying to build there. Because I think Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, Mike can handle anyone. He's one of the most charismatic, respected individuals to ever walk the sidelines of an NFL team. Just listen to how his players talk about him. Just poll the most respected players on Pittsburgh's current roster or players who have played for him previously. They all tell you the same thing, regardless of what you think about his ability to get his team over the hump. Aaron would buy into what they're doing. And Mike is going to take no crap from him. And I can tell you this, Arthur Smith isn't either. I think that's what Aaron needs at this point. Aaron needs to go to a place where it's like, hey, look, we're going to talk to you about what best suits you and how you like to, what throws you like, how you like routes run, how you feel as though you can get up to speed here quickly and help this group of wide receivers and kind of level up this offense. And I don't think Aaron's done. I don't think all of a sudden he's hit some wall to where he's a bottom quarter of the league thrower. I don't think that. I think it would be good for him to go there to throw to this group of wide receivers. Now, getting back to the whole personality and fit thing, people think Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, George Pickens. Oh, yeah, what could go wrong there? It's funny what happens when people kind of respect one another's competency in their ability to help one another. It's funny how people kind of toe the line then if they can see the greater good. And so I think that is a good fit. And honestly, I think where Pittsburgh's sitting right now as far as the draft is concerned at 21, if you're Aaron, and you really don't want to view yourself as a bridge guy in the true sense of the word, meaning there's someone sitting right behind you who they're just itching to get in there as soon as they're ready to go. Pittsburgh's probably that spot. Because, I mean, who are they going to get at that spot? And who are they going to get at that spot that they feel as though could be ready to go maybe in a year or two? So I think this could be a 2 to 3 year option for him, depending upon how he's looking at his own career and how much longer he wants to play. Now, I do think at that spot there could be a certain quarterback available that you and I have talked about before that I think as we move through the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, you're going to hear even more and more talk about Tyler Shuck from Louisville. You just are. He was, coincidentally, he was in the first group of players that they brought in for official visits into Pittsburgh. And that isn't just because they want to kick the tires. The kid can play. So could they draft someone like that? Yeah, but I like the fit for Aaron there. I like the fit for him in Pittsburgh. Maybe he looks at the Giants differently. I don't know. Maybe he thinks that's his best fit. But I see you have Tyler Shuck up on the screen there. Look, Rich, you know how it is, man. We've talked a lot about quarterbacks. We've talked a lot about different players. And once I kind of get bought in and locked in on something, it takes a lot for me to move off of it, right or wrong. This kid is mature. He has had a hell of an offseason. Jeff and Brian Brom are the very best, the coaches down there at Louisville. And at the combine, you were up in the booth calling it.
Yeah.
This kid can throw it, man. He can throw it. And he has played against some good competition this past year, and he diced them all up. Ask Ryan Clark sometime about when he was at Notre Dame watching his son against that defense, how Tyler Shuck looked out there in South Bend and just throwing the tape, ripping them. Absolutely ripping them. So we'll see what happens with Pittsburgh. And we'll see what Aaron ultimately chooses. And like, I'm not always a fan of all the things that Aaron Rodgers does and the way in which he kind of like the way he moves from a business perspective and from a personality perspective. But if we're just looking at this about fit, I mean, if you like I said, you let a lot of people tell him he doesn't fit anywhere. They would like to see him just ride off into the sunset and never be seen again. I don't think it's that dramatic. I don't think it's that extreme. I think Pittsburgh could use him. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers isn't going to go into Pittsburgh and and blow it up. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that. He and Tom. I word for word. I agree with everything you just said, and he might, before making this decision, find out what he is comfortable about Arthur Smith and what input he would be given to make the offense more Aaron Rodgers, if you will, friendly. Without, demanding somebody put on the coaching staff or some other people be on the roster and things like that. I don't see that either. That said, he's still keeping them waiting. If you're in front offices in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and Pittsburgh, PA, how long do you wait? Do you put a time on this one? Do you start a clock, Lewis? What do you do here?
For sure. And look, that to be honest with you, that is becoming a little bit of a pain in the ass to be blunt.
Yes.
It is. You do get tired of that kind of thing because you can't just sit there and go, and sit there and just be going like, well, let's just see, is Aaron going to call us today? No, not today. You do have to build your team. And obviously Pittsburgh goes ahead and they re-signed Mason Rudolph and they bring him back into the fold, which, Mason understands that culture. It's perfect. It's perfect. They know exactly what they're getting. So now at least they have somebody on the roster. All right. And if you're the Giants, I mean, you're sitting there going, okay, so what do we want to do here? Do we want Drew Lock? Do we want to run that back? Do we want to move up? Do we want to see if Cleveland's not going to draft do we see if we can move up to 2? Do we want to talk to Tennessee and see if they, if there's some, if they're even convicted on one of these quarterbacks? I think. Do we just want to try and not let Russ leave the building? Do we want to lock him in? Yeah, it makes you have to juggle so many different scenarios simply because the guy who presumably is your number one option won't tell you whether or not he wants to play for you or not. And I think at some point you have to make the move so you as a front office can continue to formulate your plan for the next 6 to 8 weeks. You obviously don't want to go into the draft with this lingering over you. You just don't. So. Yeah, that becomes annoying. I mean, hell, we just did 3 straight days of coverage on ESPN. And we started off saying what? Yeah. What did we say every day? Well, what's Aaron doing today? We have to try and find a way to kind of spin it a different way.
I know, and our job is, to obviously talk about it. But if your job is to build a roster and other options that you'd be comfortable with start drying up, you know what I mean? And
the demand right now, the demand really does outstrip there's chairs for everyone, so to speak, as Adam was saying this past week. But it's like, but there's levels to the people who you could put in those chairs. I can see what these teams are trying to do. I can see what they want. Yeah. And it's like, man, what if we don't get option 1? Now what?
Yeah.
Now what are we going to do?
I'm wondering, whose job it would be in the Giants front office, if they're waiting on a call from Rodgers to show John Mara the photograph of Rodgers on the beach in Malibu, just pondering existence. I don't know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And by the way, it's his right to stare at a sunrise. I would do the same thing every single day if I lived in those digs, and he's not out there, hoping to get caught on camera. But that said, I mean, it is, you're trying to, the clock's ticking like Mona Lisa Vito, stomping her feet here.
Rich, is that a real picture? Is that real?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I saw that picture. I didn't know if it was like something from before or what.
No, yeah. I mean, this is
That's recently, huh?
apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If I'm John, I'm just like, man, look, okay. So last year I had this whole fiasco with me standing in the room as Joe Shane is just basically like blowing me off as I'm sitting there pleading with my GM to not let my favorite player go. And now I'm looking at pictures of a dude who we're basically sitting here like, tapping our fingers on the desk, wondering if he's going to give us an answer. And he's standing out there on the beach with a blanket around him, staring off into the sun. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'd be like, if I was John Mayer, I'd be sitting there going, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Like somebody help me out here.
I know.
But yeah, it's, in all seriousness though.
Yes.
I went back and looked at all Aaron's throws, and I'm sitting there going, you could see as the season went on, and you could see some of the old Aaron. You could see it. You could see it coming. You could see it coming. He's not going to be 2014, 15 Aaron, and no one expects that. But I'm telling you, I can see why teams are interested in saying, hey, look, we think you can help us for a year or two if you're committed to it, and it all fits for us. I can see why. I can see why they're trying to wait and they're trying to be patient. I can.
So before I let you go, let's get off the Rodgers subject. The one move that you loved this week, and the one that left you scratching your head the most this week, Louis Riddick.
Yeah, I think there was multiple moves that I really loved. Look, I loved everything that New England is doing as far as being honest with where they're at in their team build and saying, hey, look, we got to get some protection for Drake, so we're gonna get Morgan Moses in here. We got to fortify ourselves right down the middle. So we go ahead and look, many people feel as though they overpaid for Milton Williams. But if you're Mike Vrabel, you're going, hey, look, I think I may have a young Jeffrey Simmons type guy here. Bring in my guy, Harold Landry, sign Carlton Davis. We're good to go. We're trying to build this thing with the kind of players that fit my image. So I loved everything that they did. I loved what Washington did with Laremy Tunsil and trying to get him in Washington and getting him in Washington to protect Jaden's blind side. And there was another market for Laremy Tunsil. There were other teams trying to get him that were tackle needy. And so they made the commitment. What I didn't like, look, if you are Dallas and you are trying to fortify yourself right down the middle of this football team and put some building blocks right at the heart of your football team where everyone has attacked you and everyone has basically just ripped your heart out, then why weren't you in the market for a guy to make a big move on some kind of sturdier, strong, downhill type of inside linebacker, off-ball backer, defensive tackle, even an edge player now, because obviously DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. I know you're trying to resign Micah. Was Josh Sweat in your plans at all? Was Milton Williams in your plan at all? Was Robert Spillane in your plan at all, as far as maybe having that kind of thumper at the linebacker spot so teams don't run the ball down your throat? I don't quite always understand Dallas's reluctance, to play in the free agent market selectively with people who are high-end players who can really help them. I love drafting and developing too, but you're just hamstringing yourself. We'll see if they're big players right now for Cooper Kupp, because then, obviously reports are that they've emerged as a player for him. I would like that. I'd love to see Cooper Kupp with CeeDee Lamb. I think that would work. I think that'd be great. But it's just always, they always are at the forefront of everyone's conversations about the hell are they doing? What are you waiting for? Why do you always wait till the last minute and try and make things happen at the last minute and then beat your chest saying, look, I told you we were all in. Jerry Jones, one of the best businessmen in the history of the world. This guy has made ungodly amounts of money because he's obviously a very savvy businessman. It doesn't seem always real savvy to wait till the last minute and pay high prices and basically just put yourself in a bind like they do. But we'll see what happens.
Louis, thanks for the time and your 2 cents going into the weekend. Always appreciate it. Truly. Thanks again. Thanks again, man.
All righty.
You got it. That's Louis Riddick at Riddick ESPN. Go ahead and follow him. Always great to chat with him. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.